Thank you. The governor of Illinois has written to President Biden to say the federal government's lack of intervention and coordination at the border has created an untenable situation for Illinois. Does anybody outside of the White House think the immigration policy is working?
So here's what I can tell you. I just mentioned that the president requested $4 billion for supplemental funding to address what we're seeing at the border, right? And to manage what is happening currently at the southwest border more specifically. And Republicans continue to block us. They do. They continue to block us. And without Congress, the president has taken action. He's taken action whether it is surging resources to the border. We have removed and returned more than 250,000 people since May 12th, and working with partners and countries across the region to actually deal with this issue. So the president has continued to try to put forth actions and ways to deal with what we're seeing at the border, and Republicans continue to block us. I just mentioned moments ago, like 2 weeks ago, they put forth a CR that would take away law enforcement at the border.
You dick! Different topic. There are some new pictures of Commander Biden biting a staffer again. How many times has that dog bitten the Bidens?
I would refer you to the Secret Service and also the First Lady's office.
Okay. It's the 12th known incident of this dog biting a White House staffer. A lot of times when that happens, there's a lawsuit. Isn't the president worried about getting sued?
I would refer you to the Secret Service or the First Lady's office.
My last one. Is any part of the West Wing here just loving the fact that Republicans don't appear to be able to govern the one part of the government that they actually control? Nobody's
loving anything when we're not able to deliver for the American people.
Yo, is he okay?
Nobody's loving that. It is important for Congress to work, not for us, but on behalf of the American people. It is important to make sure that we meet the challenges of the American people. That's what's important. What we saw, and you heard from the president, what we saw on Saturday should have never have happened. We're glad that a deal was made. We're glad that we're not in a shutdown, but House Republicans should have never gotten us that far. And so they are the majority in the House. They can fix this. They're creating the chaos. That is not helpful to the American people. That's why you saw the president today talk about student debt relief and talk about what else he's doing to make sure that we're giving a little bit of breathing room to the American people. That's why you heard from the president yesterday talking about, or our announcement, talking about how we're continuing to beat Big Pharma so we can lower prescription drug costs for the American people. That's what the president cares about. That's what he wants to see. What can we continue to do to help Americans as they face really tough challenges?
No.
So this is not, we're not loving it. It is not helpful to any American across the country.
In any of the meetings about this in the last 24 hours, has anybody in the West Wing heard anybody talking about the possibility of Speaker Trump?
This is something for House Republicans to figure out. This is something for them to fix. We're not going to get involved in the speakership. We don't care who is in the race or who is out the race. That is not for us to figure out. The president doesn't have a vote. No one here has a vote. They have to figure this out. Okay, Peter.
KARINE, if the president's confident that the Congress is going to pass the necessary funds to continue providing aid to Ukraine, why is there the need to have discussions about an alternate vehicle to provide that funding?
I'm not going to get beyond or go beyond what the president said.
That's not going beyond. That's going behind. That's things that
I'm gonna let the president speak to this. He said he's going to give a speech on Ukraine. I'm going to let him speak to it.
What did you say?
Confused because the president, we said here that the president was confident that the aid would continue, but today the president himself conceded he was worried about that. Can those two align?
I think he's confident, and I just dealt with this. I'm happy to repeat myself. What we've heard from House members, both Republicans and Democrats, we heard from senators, both Republicans and Democrats, have said that they want to continue the support in Ukraine so that Ukrainians can continue to fight against the Russian aggression. We've heard that. Majority, right? Overwhelming majority. So that still stands, right? That has not gone away. That still stands. That commitment that we have heard publicly from them still stands. So that is where we are with that. That is why we are confident that, yeah, you know what? There is broad support. Now, if the president wants to take an extra step and explain and talk through the importance of supporting Ukraine, that's what he wants to do. It's not the first time. He's done it multiple times, even when we've had continue to have bipartisan
He's doing
support.
it because he's confident, not because he's worried.
I'm going to let the president lay out when the time comes as to why he wants to speak to Ukraine. What I can say is what we've heard from Congress, because it is up to Congress, right now, to move forward on how they're going to move forward in funding the support for the continued funding support for Ukraine. But it's important for us to point out what they've said publicly.
Has the president spoken to Speaker McCarthy, now former Speaker McCarthy, since yesterday? Has he spoken to the Speaker Pro Tem, McHenry, in the time since? Has he had any calls that you can share with us with those, because he needs them, as he acknowledged, to try to get Congress working and to get America working again for the Americans?
I'm not going to get into any private conversation. You're right. The president was very clear. He believes that they need to get back to work. House needs to get back to work. They need to figure out who their speaker is going to be. He's willing to work in good faith with whoever the speaker is.
Just to be clear, when you say I'm not going to get into private conversations, you're not acknowledging that there were private conversations, just that you won't say yes or no.
What I can say is senior staffers, as I've said many times, have been in close touch with members in Congress over the past several weeks, over the past several months. That's something that happens pretty regularly. And I can say this, that the president himself regularly, often has conversations with members in Congress because of his some of them are relationships that he's had for some time now. I'm just not going to get into each conversation that he's had. They're private discussions. We don't read out each and every conversation that the president has. That's where I'm going to leave it.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Okay.
Thank you, Karine. I'm going to follow up on my colleagues' questions about the president's speech. I know you can't talk about the substance of it, but can we understand this as an acknowledgement from the president that he perhaps could be doing better in terms of explaining to the American people why supporting Ukraine is within their best interests, and maybe an acknowledgement that there is waning support from the American public?
So look, the president has spoken multiple times about the importance of continuing to fund Ukraine. He did it on Monday, he did it on Sunday, he did it today. And he talked about how there's a direct link in supporting Ukraine, continuing that funding, to our own national security. That is something that he's been pretty consistent about. I'm not going to get into what he's going to say in his speech. You'll hear directly from him, obviously. But, we have seen the polling, just like you all have seen the polling. I believe the Admiral was asked about this as well. And yeah, we see the polling and we get that. We understand. But we also believe that it is fundamentally important to our own national security, as well as supporting the brave people of Ukraine, to continue that support. It is. No, there you go. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm just kidding.
I turned mine off.
All right. I know it works. Every couple of years, folks.
Your last statement set off the alarm.
Yeah.
Your last statement set off the alarm.
I don't even know what was the last statement, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Patsy.
Thank you.
It's going to go on a rolling basis. Be ready.
But to address that waning support from the American public, and as well as the trajectory that there is waning support from Congress, at what point does the White House, would the White House reconsider the messaging on Ukraine? I mean, for as long as it takes maybe an effective message in the beginning of the war, but maybe the American people at this point need to hear something less indefinite, less open-ended. Is this something that the White House is considering?
I'm just not going to get into the substance or the specifics of what the president's going to say. I mean, the president said it today, right? He said that he was able to bring 50 nations together to show the commitment to Ukraine as they stand up against Russian aggression.
Wow.